Streaming services are on the rise, and brick-and-mortar video stores are a thing of the past. We have lost that experience of wandering the aisles and stumbling upon a film we've never heard of. We have replaced the familiar face behind the video store counter with an algorithm to recommend films. With more and more content available, it's harder to know what's worth watching and what might be a waste of your time. There are many hidden gems out there waiting to be discovered, and we want to help you find them. This is Trailer Rewind, a podcast where we discuss and review recently forgotten or overlooked films that are now available to stream at home. This month on Trailer Rewind, we are looking at two films about tragic singers or aspiring singers, maybe a little bit of both. Today's episode, we are going to discuss Wild Rose.
I bet you're going to miss me.
Can you keep your foot still, please?
You're going to be the next Dolly Parton!
Your Lordship, Miss Harlan has put her childish ways behind her. Her children are living with her once again.
Do you miss me?
She is a promising young country singer.
I'm trying to get to Nashville.
Well, you better mind your tab doesn't go off when you're going through security.
She now works full-time as a daily woman.
I'm trying to be a country singer.
Nobody wants to see a convicted criminal up there.
Johnny Cash is a convicted criminal, you ball bag. Country music. There's three chords in the truth. Just gets whoever's in there out. I should have been born in America. I'm an American.
You're young. You're incredibly talented. There is nothing you can't do.
Just thinking about your kids. You cast them off when you get a better offer.
This is me trying to make something of myself, and surely that's a good thing for them.
No letting them down. That would be a good thing for them.
Today is March 13th, and Wild Rose is available on Hulu. And this month, we're actually going to be camping out in Hulu. Our other film about a singer is also available on Hulu. I know you can always purchase them for rental, but if you're looking at streaming, Hulu's going to be your place to hang out with us this month.
I personally don't have Hulu, so I'm on Vudu, which is another consonant U service. But yeah, you can get it on Vudu. You can also get it on Amazon.
Yes.
Amazon Prime Video.
Getting from the theater, Wild Rose was released. This is a number that I have a feeling we're going to come across a lot. Wild Rose was released into 4 theaters.
4 theaters? What's the 4?
June 21st, 2019. Okay. It made $52,000 that first week, but then it hit a wider release of 195 screens a month later. Good. Stayed out in theaters until the end of August, so just sort of hung out there for the summer, and made $1.6 million domestically. Internationally, it made nearly $5.5 million. So worldwide total of just over $7 million. I couldn't find any release on physical media, so I don't know that in the States this is available on DVD or Blu-ray, but it became available digitally on September 17th, 2019. So from June to September, from theater to home, which didn't surprise me. This one really felt like I was back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, where we would get in the video stores just a lot of these more, I guess, mid-size British or English films that wouldn't find an audience in theaters, but might find that audience out there in home video on the shelves and all of that. And this one just felt really familiar to me in terms of that style, that feel to this film. Did you have that same sense of this, or how did this film hit you?
Well, it reminded me, it reminded me of one of those, it felt smaller. It felt something that was like accessible, something that was, I think, familiar is the word you used, right? I think it feels like that. And then it's really sort of, the thing that's really noticeable for me about this movie is it's really about the music first, right? The music is really key to this movie. And then it's the music and the life that goes with the music, which is not always, the focus of films like this. I thought that's really important for you to know before you choose to watch this movie.
So last year we talked about Anna and the Apocalypse, and I think that was one of the only other movies we've talked about that had a lot of music to it.
Sure.
I myself am not much of a country fan.
Okay.
Are you a fan of the country? Now, make it as Rose does throughout this movie, there's a distinction between country music and country and Western music.
Yeah, I don't know that I know what the distinction is. I felt like that was more of a tool to be used in the film. But, I would say that country isn't necessarily my first choice. It's a definite sort of it's a genre, right?
Yes.
You have a country station that you have out in the world. There's pop country, and that's not really what she's doing in this movie. This is more traditional country, but in general, I don't dislike country. I like any genre of music that's going to make me emotional or that's going to put me to an emotional place. I enjoy, and I found that this brand of country is right up that alley in terms of it's emotional country. It's not mindless, that's for sure.
Right. And I think this was one of my, I don't want to say concerns going in, but something of how much of the story is going to be rooted in spending time with the music. But I did find myself, as again, not a country music fan, still really enjoying the music, the songs throughout the film. I wouldn't say it's a musical, but there are several musical sequences and performances throughout this. But for me, it fit really well, and I found them really enjoyable and entertaining. It's not a soundtrack that I'm going to put on, regular rotation. I have listened to it through a couple times, and I have to say, Jessie Buckley doing the singing in this, she could have a career, singing just as well as acting on this
Definitely.
one. And that was something that really, really surprised me in this, because I pulled the soundtrack and it's Jessie Buckley. Here, she's singing these songs. And so I have to give her a tremendous amount of credit, not only for singing, but really, I think, doing a good job of carrying this film and having a character that we can connect with. So I found myself really comfortable with this movie in terms of it's something that fits right in. It's just really straightforward. It's going to give you exactly what you want, all the feels and all the places that you're going to get them, and some really entertaining musical moments. So this is one that and it's not a musical. That's one thing that you should say. Anna and the Apocalypse you brought up is a musical, right?
With musical numbers. And the other musical movie, we didn't do it on Trailer Rewind last year, but we did it on the film board, was Yesterday. And this is even a little bit less of a musical than Yesterday.
Yes,
in that
true.
In Yesterday, for the Beatles, they were trying to hit particular songs at particular times. This one really felt like the music was just kind of integrated throughout her life, and at times she was allowed to let it out, which I think. I don't know. I think that's a different kind of movie, right? So I don't think if you're looking for a musical or something with specific numbers, you're not going to get it. That being said, I think people, if you like country music, you'll probably be seeking out this soundtrack, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and it is sort of that story of the young aspiring artist. So I think for people that are fans of country music, you're going to get, it's going to be maybe some familiar territory, or, again, some of these songs or musicians, all of those pieces, I think will enjoy this type of film, but you don't have to be a country fan, I think, to really enjoy this film and the story that we get about Rose and her journey.
Agreed.
Forward. So how did this one end up on your flick chart?
So on my flick chart, it's a little bit low. You mentioned it's straightforward. It is a pretty straightforward movie. There are some artful things in it, and we'll get to talking about that a little bit later when we get into the show. But for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward movie. I didn't dislike it. I would have definitely put it as a like here, but it ended up being low because just when it comes up to compete against other things, it ends up being knocked down a little bit. So it was 182 out of 228. Which, again, sounds low, but I couldn't justify it against some other films. The interesting thing is where it places. It's just above The Circle, which I do think it's better than The Circle, but it is below Yesterday. So for me, that's kind of what brought me to remembering that, is that I think I enjoyed Yesterday a bit more. But it's a very straightforward film, and we're going to talk about it. I liked it. I like the music. So if the music's something you're into, this might be a movie for you. Specifically, if you were into, I didn't see Crazy Heart.
Oh,
right?
No, that's one that's on my list, that Jeff Bridges one. Yeah, that's
going to have the sort of tragic, a little bit of the drama that goes along with the music life. And then I think anyone that was out, kind of following A Star Is Born movies, I think this is this is that thing. So if you like that kind of movies, this is in that vein. It's a movie that you're going to like that. It might not be of the same quality, but it's like those movies, and I think you'll enjoy it because of the drama.
Yeah, because it hit flick chart. It starts you off in the middle, and it was easy. I forget what exactly my midpoint movie was at this point.
Mine is All About Nina.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow, interesting.
Right in the middle.
Wow. So it was easy to get in the top half, but then everything it came up against, it just kept getting knocked down. So it's residing right there, right around the middle at 252 out of 529. And so, I give this about 3 stars.
Yeah.
That it felt just really solid. It didn't do anything, but I don't think it aspired to do anything more than that. It's a really entertaining film with music, some great drama around family and career and balancing those pieces. And I think if that's something that you're looking for, I don't want to say it's light, because there are some heavier moments, but it is something that for me, I always consider this sort of like a Saturday afternoon watch. I can put it on, I can watch it. If something distracts me, it's not going to bother me too much, because it's a movie you could pause, you can come back into, and it's not one that's going to be ultra demanding of your attention of like, I've got to really pay attention to what's going on with this plot or the dialogue, all that. It's one that you can really come in and out of, but still have a really good time with it. And so I think overall, I can't say anybody, oh, this is not going to be a movie for you, unless you really, really don't like country music.
That you don't want to do that. You don't want to see this movie if it's that, because you'll be kind of mocking it the whole way through if you don't like country music. Because this is really, I mean, this is a bit of a fish out of water in someone that is in a place where no one likes country, or the idea is that no one likes country, and she's an aficionado and a protege. So, that's kind of key to it. I didn't give my star. My stars are about 2.5.
Okay,
2.5 and a like for me on this one, and it's 182 out of 228.
Well, over on Letterboxd, it has a weighted average review of 3.62. That's based on just slightly over 10,000 reviews. Over on Flickchart, it hasn't really been ranked a lot. About 680 users have ranked it.
Low.
670 times it's been ranked, but only by 51 people. And if you remember last month, we talked about movies being in their top 20. 0 people have this in their top 20. We had
that's not surprising.
No, but we had a lot. We had those. What was it? Those 4 people that had High Life in their top 20.
Yes.
So this was one that it didn't surprise me, because again, it's a very entertaining film, but it doesn't go above and beyond.
We need to evangelize Flickchart to more country music fans, is what that means.
That's what we need to do. So,
because the people that would put it in their top 20 are the country people, for sure.
Yes. All right. So, listeners, we're going to start diving into this. So, if you think this is your kind of film and don't want anything spoiled, this is your chance to pause the podcast and go check out Wild Rose on Hulu. If you are just a brave soul that doesn't mind spoilers, you can go ahead and keep listening as we delve into Wild Rose. So, JJ, at least I have seen countless stories of like aspiring artists, or that that working class person trying to like rise above the grit and grime of their life, and they want something more for that. And for me, this story started in a really interesting place, because we are going to meet our main character. We meet Rose. She's getting released from prison.
Yeah.
We don't have this, it's this sweet girl, and down on her luck. It's, oh, no, she's in prison. And for me, that put her at a big disadvantage. I thought, how am I going to empathize with this character who we meet? Clearly, she's done something wrong in her life. She's served time. She's getting out. What is going to make her likable? How am I going to care about this?
That is going to get you just kicked off the jury right away, Steve. You're supposed to be impartial.
Okay. Yes. But no,
she's already been story first.
She's already been guilty, right? She served her time, right? So
yeah, I guess assumingly, yes.
Right.
I don't know about their justice system in Scotland, but yeah.
Okay.
We assume that she's done something bad.
She's done something bad. And then I started wondering, why would I want her to achieve her dream? Is this something that she is going to deserve? We start to we see that she goes back to the country bar that she's worked at and sung at since she was like a teenager, that she's been like the house band there. And she goes in to reclaim that right, which is hers. Throws the guy off stage and, to sort of, this is my stage. This is what I do. She owns this. And we get this sense she's got these ambitions of becoming a star. And I thought, why do I want to root for her? Right? Why?
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing about this movie is there's nothing about her character through the first 2/3 of the movie that makes you want to root for her. However, they lead in the film with her singing a song.
Yeah.
And it's good. And every time she opens her mouth, it's real, real good. And so it's the weird thing of this sort of playing of this character who just can't do anything right. Right? She's bound to this world, but she's immensely talented. And so you're right in that the character, what is there to root for? You don't have that to root for, but part of us recognizes that greatness. And that's a really interesting way to teach us about what the character is going through. Because I feel like a screw up, but I know I've got something special. So what do you do with that? And I think that's what she's really struggling with through this movie.
You really touched on, I think, the sort of the core kernel of this story, because we see early on she's not a good mom. She's been in prison. She doesn't know her kids that well. They've been spent time with her mother, and clearly she doesn't know how to connect with her kids. She doesn't know her kids that well. Everything seems to be about her. We see early on she's made a promise to her kids that she's going to take them out for pizza. She goes out drinking with friends. Has to come home because she's got the monitoring bracelet, anklet.
Yeah.
Has to get back and gets home, and then it's, oh, well, what about, her mom's there? Like, what about pizza? You promised the kids pizza. But for Rose, it's really all about her. So she's still struggling with her dream, and she's made some bad choices in her life she's living with those consequences, but she still has this drive of, this is who I want to become. This is my dream for myself. And she's not going to let anything get in the way of that. And what I found interesting is that she is not, how would you get this aspiration of being a country star growing up in Glasgow, right? I mean, she's the odd one out there, but you get the sense that it's not just, that exacerbates things, I think, a bit. It's not just that there's not a lot of country music there. It's just, there's not a lot of life options for her there. She ends up she gets a job basically as like a housekeeper because one of her friend's mothers is sort of retiring from that. And so she gets this job. This is where this weird balance of magic comes into this movie, and why I love so many parts of it. As a whole, I can't say I love this movie as an entirety, but there are so many great moments in here. One is early on when I think it's her first day on the job, maybe, when she's vacuuming around. She breaks into the bar and has a few drinks, but as she's vacuuming, she's got her headphones on and she's singing. And as she's vacuuming, we hear the music in the headphones. And then we hear the drums come in a little bit louder. And as she's vacuuming, we see, like, sitting on the staircase, there's a guy behind a drum kit playing. And then she comes around the corner vacuuming. There's like a guy playing guitar over there. So it's like the music in her head. We're seeing it in the set there. And it's just that lighthearted fun.
She's always surrounded by her music. And they did it in a creative way to show us that.
It's little things like that to me that just set this apart from being just a mediocre film. Those moments, I remember them, and I've seen that done before, but it just worked really, really well here. It was well executed in that, and for me,
it's like that new NBC show, Zoe's Infinite Playlist
exactly,
or whatever.
Yes, and we do get a little bit early on also of this sense of Rose's the class struggle that's going on, because she's working for this very wealthy family, and she wants to go to Nashville, so she basically asks her employer, "Well, can't you just give me the money? Can't you just give me whatever, $5,000? Because, well, you don't need to drink bottled water all the time. So just give me this money." And it's like, no, Rose, I can't just give you this money to go to Nashville. And Rose has this sense of, I don't want to say entitlement, but maybe that's what it is, of just, she feels like for so long she's been one of the have-nots, and she sees people that are being successful or are getting things their way. And she feels like it's her turn for this, which I think a lot of people can sympathize of. I've got this dream of wanting to do something, but there's so many roadblocks and barriers in my way. But what happens is she starts to get little doors start opening for her a little bit. And just when she feels like fame is out of reach, her employer, Susanna, gets her in to visit with Bob Harris. And this is this clip I want to talk about is she sits down to talk to Bob. She makes the big trip to London and everything, and there's all kinds of bad decisions she makes on that way. She ends up losing her money and all of this stuff. But when she finally actually gets there to sit down with Bob, he has some questions for her.
So this is very exciting, meeting a homegrown country star from Glasgow. It's a great music city, Glasgow.
I'm trying to get to Nashville, obviously, but who's ever heard of a country singer from Glasgow? That's ridiculous. It can't be.
Why not?
See, my life. My life's like being one of these transsexuals, When you're born a man, but you're meant to come out a lassie. Yeah, that is me. I should have been born in America. I'm an American, but here I am.
Do you write?
Oh, no.
Can you play?
No.
Honestly, I don't think it matters whether you're from Glasgow, Scotland or Glasgow, Kentucky. If you've got a voice and you've got something to say, I watched your link, and you really do have a voice. So what do you need to say?
And I love how that scene ends with, what is it that you need to say? This whole idea of you can be a great singer, but you've got to have something to say. And for me, it was this great dose of reality that I wasn't expecting in the story. Because typically you get this, it's sort of like the Cinderella story of there's some adversity, but then, some things happen and everything just falls into place. And here I thought, oh, this guy, this radio, he does the country radio show on BBC Two Radio. He's going to open doors for her, but he doesn't. He puts her in her place a little bit, saying, what do you have to say? What's your story? And she doesn't really have one.
Yeah, and he does it with love. I mean, he isn't putting her back in her place, like saying, you can't do this. He's actually encouraging her by saying, you need to find your inspiration as an artist, because that's the next step for you. And I think that's really special.
Yeah, it was something that I thought, oh, this is going to take a different approach to it, because it's not just about having the great voice. Because we see that when Rose, sort of reclaims the stage, sort of with the house band there, and as she starts singing, the crowd just, they're welcoming her back. There's just this energy there, and you get the sense of she's this great performer. But clearly, what Bob's saying is that's not necessarily enough to do it.
Right, and it's foreshadowing. It's foreshadowing because she finally, as we get to our resolution of the story, she finally finds what she needs to say.
Well, so she does eventually. We have a lot of storylines going on with Susanna, who is now going to basically do a fundraising gig to help Rose raise money. We've got issues with the kids. Rose is trying to rehearse with the band, and she's like putting her kids around with like friends and neighbors. Her kids are like this. It's like the worst parenting ever of, my kids are a major inconvenience because I've got to do this gig with my band. And so I'm just finding anybody to babysit these kids. And the kids are miserable. Her daughter doesn't talk to her. It's getting really bad.
And ultimately, this is because she lied.
Yes.
Because she said that she didn't have kids. Had she just said that she had kids, they could have been a part of her whole dream through this. That's the really tough thing to sit and swallow, that really all it takes is just owning yourself, owning who you are as a person. And she's got
this idealized version of who she's supposed to be this country singer. She's got to, be her own woman, and the kids are sort of an inconvenience. And so then her son ends up getting injured, and she's at the hospital, and she's, Mom, I got to leave. And it's just like, for me, what kind of parent are you? And I understand. And I guess this is one of my peeves as a parent of like, you have this responsibility to these two little people that are, you're their mother, but she's not acting like a mother at all. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know that I want her to get, to get this fame, because I don't know that she deserves it, because at what cost to her kids, right? I mean,
right.
It's horrible. Right. But, there's a nice relationship she has with her mother, because her mother is just like, you got to just get a job. You got to take care of your kids. And finally comes around to see that without this dream that, Rose isn't herself. I mean, this is really what defines her daughter, is this. And so Rose is able to finally get the money to go to Nashville. And that's what I wasn't sure what was going to happen when the story got there, because we'd already had...
I actually thought the movie was going to end. There was a point where she's on the plane on the way to Nashville. And I was like, okay, well, that's a nice ending.
She's going to... Right.
Just roll credits.
Right.
But they went there.
Right.
They did the whole thing.
What I loved about it was that it was that another dose of realism. I mean, she shows up thinking like, hey, I have this great voice. If people can hear me sing, everything's going to work out great. I've just, I'm here in Nashville, and this is what I've been living for. And now I'm going to sing, and people are going to hear me. Everything's going to work out. And there's a scene where she visits this bar in Nashville, and she hopes of I'm going to get up on stage here, like open mic night or something, and just get up there and sing. And she gets this dose of reality.
How'd you get to sing?
You gotta go through our booker. There's a wait list. It's all on the website.
But what if I'm here for a while?
I mean, there's people here from all over. From Australia, New Zealand, Germany. We're all trying to do the same thing. It's Nashville. It's company town. So eventually you're gonna meet someone who knows somebody who works someplace who can help you out. Can I get you something?
No.
And it's that sort of Rose getting shut down there of realizing that, yes, you need to have the dream, but it's also about the business side of everything. I mean, I was so surprised. Like the waitress is like, yeah, the website, and it's a business town. You've got to do all these. I mean, it just, it really caught me off guard.
It's a good dose of reality, right? But it doesn't stop her. I mean, she goes on and she does do it.
Yes.
So that isn't the moment where she shifts, because she does take a tour of the Grand Ole Opry, and she sneaks onto the stage and she sings, and it's beautiful. And she has her Phantom Band join her again on stage.
Yes.
And then she gets exactly what it is she was told she's going to get, which is an invitation because somebody in this town knows somebody and they're going to bring you somebody and all that stuff. So when does she turn for you? When does she turn for you? Because for me, I didn't get why she would walk away at that moment.
Well, I think I think it's two things, because she realizes, when the waitress tells her, look, it's eventually going to happen. You've got to stick around. Eventually you'll find a booker and they'll get you this and this. And then it's after the Grand Ole Opry, and the security guard is like, yeah, on every tour somebody sneaks off and does that. But hey, my girlfriend or whoever knows somebody. And I think it's those two events that makes Rose realize it's not the Cinderella story. It's not going to just happen, that it's going to be just as much work as anything else. And I think that's why she then decides, I'm going to go home, because Nashville isn't the magical land of Oz where just dreams come true. It's going to be just as much work here as it is at home. And I think for me, that's the turn of that realization of it's not easy and it's work no matter where you are.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that's different for Hollywood, right? Because as soon as you cross into the city at Hollywood, they stand there and hand you 2 Oscars.
Right, yes.
That's what happens when you walk into LA. No, I'm just kidding. But no, and I think that's great. I guess my point in us following her in this story is that I think it's great. I don't necessarily, this was a problem that I had with the movie, is that I think she should have still taken that offer, because that is the offer, right? If I would have seen a bigger turn in her, where she made the turn to lead us to the climax, where she recognizes her joy at home and all the support she has at home, and then she goes home and sings this wonderful song. She's been singing songs about American cities throughout the movie, and then she changes it to her hometown. I think that's great. I think that's really smart. I just didn't see the turn in the movie. I didn't get when it happened.
Yeah,
and maybe it's because the third act is a bit rushed.
Yes,
right. Our time in Nashville is very short.
Right.
It's quick. They get across all the points, but we don't see the character shift there, and that was hard for me. Again, all the music is perfect, all the sentiment makes sense. It just didn't necessarily line up with what was happening on screen, and that was hard for me too, because I wanted her to check it out. I wanted her to go for it. That's what you do when you're there. And I feel like she would have known that. But beyond that, she had a great revelation, and she went home and she sang a beautiful song. It was a very nice climax into the ending, with her coming home and having everyone there.
Oh, yes.
Everyone there that supported her at one point or another.
And the song, she talks about, I had to find my own way. And for me, it's the lyrics of the song that sort of communicate what the turn that happens within her, but we don't see that. And that's the thing that for me keeps this sort of as in the 3 stars, is that you don't have that emotional swell at the end. I mean, yes, and I think maybe it's the way they shoot that final scene. It's you see she's singing, and it's time has passed, so it's like, where is she? And it's like, oh, she's at home, but now it's a bigger venue, and she's making her way. She's working her way through the business.
Yep.
But that doesn't
in
have
Scotland,
right? But it doesn't have the emotional payoff of like, yeah, I'm so happy for her. This is her dream come true. It's very much about she's going to work her way through it, and it's more for me about her realization that it is work. It's not just about her pure talent. It's not just she's got to take care of her family and her kids and be honest with friends. And it was this sort of selfish drive for fame at the beginning, and I see that has now transitioned to where we are now, where she realizes sort of her place, where she belongs, and what she's going to need to do to achieve what it is that at least it's comfortable for her. So she is singing. It may not be the big show in Nashville, but here she's still singing to a crowd that, enjoys and appreciates it. She's able to sing her own stuff. She's sort of found her voice, and her friends and family are there. And to be accepting of that and saying, this actually is rewarding. And so for me, there was a character shift there, but it's not really,
on screen.
It's not on screen. And that's where, like, yeah, it didn't pull my heartstrings. I didn't start tearing up at the end, and
my biggest emotional moment was in the second act when Winona, her daughter, gets up to have a glass of water, and just out of, maternal instinct, she says, "Okay, let's get you back to bed," picks her up, and this is the first time you've seen them embrace in the entire movie.
Yes.
And Winona puts her arm around her, and they take an extra second.
Yeah.
There. I mean, and that's huge. And that, again, they have a lot of great foreshadowing in this movie. They have a lot of things that are turning you towards this great ending. It's just that third act is not executed very well because you never see it on screen when the turn actually makes. You see all the stuff leading up to it well, but that last piece isn't there, which is a little tough, which is a little unfortunate for me.
Yes. Yeah. So there are some of the pieces with her kids. There are these moments. It just, yeah. And this again, why I say it's enjoyable. It hits all the pieces, but I wanted a little bit more. I wanted to have that emotional, and I guess comparing it to something like A Star Is Born, I mean, that's more overtly manipulating you emotionally. Whereas this one, I think, is trying to really focus more on the character in Rose. And unfortunately, through some of, either editing or how they decided to structure the story, there's some of those key moments or realizations that just happen off screen, off camera. We don't see those pivots. And I think it leaves us out emotionally from being invested in Rose, because I was surprised at the end, coming from, here's this woman coming out of prison, horrible parent that's got this selfish dream of being, a singer, to transitioning at the end to, I'm accepting who I am and the decisions I've made have made me who I am. I'm going to do this on my own way. And I thought that's a great journey for a character to make in the transitions. I mean, from early on hanging out with her boyfriend, the bar, who's so sloppy drunk he can't even stand up, to being a responsible parent at the end. I mean, that for me,
it's a redemption story.
Yes, it is. I mean, I think for me, one of the key points that, of course, being a parent of kids, is that moment when she digs into the kids' backpacks and starts going through all this stuff from school and the awards and that stuff.
That segment, that sort of sequence of things that hits you. That whole thing in the second act. That's wonderful.
That's the great piece where it's like, oh, she's starting to connect with her kids. But then she unravels all of that when she starts trying to prep for the gig and just pushes her kids away again. I thought,
it's her dream.
Yes, it is. All right. Well, this is one that it feels like a typical trailer rewind one for me. It's one I'm glad I saw it. I don't know that I'm going to watch it a lot more, but it's one that I think I can happily recommend to people, and something to
especially those
enjoy.
People who, those movies that we mentioned. A Star Is Born, Crazy Heart, those kind of movies, and especially if you like country music.
Yes,
the music in this is really special.
Oh, yes.
It's worth it just to listen to it.
So for our next film, we've got an entirely different type of music that we're going to be getting into. But our next film is about another, I guess I'm calling it our Tragic Singer series, but we'll be talking about Vox Lux, which is also available right now on Hulu.
And it is something completely different.
Yes.
Completely different.
Yes, it is. It will be pulling you emotionally in different directions, and you'll hear about that on our next episode. Thank you for listening to Trailer Rewind. If anything we said here entertained, educated, or even enraged you, we'd like you to tell people about this podcast. Whatever your listening platform is, please share, rate, or write a short review. It helps other podcast listeners find us. If you enjoy connecting with other film fans, you can become a member of our community on Discord. It's free, and there's always an interesting dialogue or debate to jump into. You can also financially support us on Patreon. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive Discord channels, the opportunity to chat with us live before we record an episode, and the warm feeling you get knowing you are contributing support to the behind-the-scenes resources that help everyone here at the Next Reel family of podcasts. So please join us on Discord or become a Patreon supporter. Either way, we would love to have you be part of our community. Hondo.